Stop before you spend that old penny. If you have a 1935, 1946, or 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny, you might be holding a piece of American history that deserves a much closer look. But here's the catch: not every wheat penny is valuable, and the tiny details can make a huge difference. In this video, we're checking all three dates, looking at the mint marks, condition, and rare possibilities collectors search for. And stay until the end, because I'll show you which of these three pennies deserves the closest inspection before you decide its value. The coin number 1. Before you spend that 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny, take one more look. Most people see a 1-cent coin, notice the old wheat penny design, and assume it's just another common penny. But what if the coin you're holding has unusually beautiful original color, an extremely high grade, or a genuine mint error? The 1957 is not automatically a rare fortune coin, but some exceptional examples have brought surprisingly strong prices. So before you throw that little penny back into circulation, let's take a closer look and discover what really makes a 1957 worth checking. Start with the front of the coin. You'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head is "In God We Trust," with liberty beside the portrait and the date 1957 on the other side. Look closely underneath the date and you'll find the small D mint mark. That D tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Now here's the first thing you need to know. More than 1 billion 1957 Lincoln cents were produced, specifically 1,051,342,000. So simply finding a 1957 does not mean you've discovered an extremely rare penny. But this is where coin collecting gets interesting. A coin can be common in general circulation and still become difficult to find in exceptional condition. Think about what happened to these pennies after they left the mint. They were placed into pockets, cash registers, jars, drawers, vending machines, and coin collections. They were dropped, rubbed against other coins, and exposed to the environment. Copper changes color over time, and circulation creates scratches and wear. After almost 70 years, most surviving examples aren't going to look like they just left the mint. So take your 1957 penny and place it under good lighting. Don't look at it from several feet away. Look closely. Examine Lincoln's cheek. Look around his jaw and hair. Check the open areas of the coin for tiny contact marks. Now ask yourself, does the coin look heavily worn, or does it still have sharp details and strong original luster? If the penny is brown, scratched, and heavily circulated, it's generally an ordinary example. But if you discover a coin with beautiful original surfaces and very little wear, slow down. Because condition is where the story starts changing. One of the most interesting things about Lincoln cents is their color designation. Collectors commonly distinguish copper cents as brown, red-brown, or red, depending on how much original red color remains. A bright, original red example can be considerably more desirable than a heavily toned or circulated brown example at the same date and mint. And that's exactly why you shouldn't judge your 1957 simply by looking at the date. Look at the color. Look at the surface. Look at the strike. Look at the grade. Now turn the coin over. This is where the classic wheat penny design appears. You'll see 1 cent in the center, surrounded by United States of America. On either side are the 2 wheat ears that give this famous coin its nickname, the wheat penny. Above everything is the Latin motto, E pluribus unum. This design was used on Lincoln cents from 1909 through 1958, making the 1957 one of the final years of the wheat reverse. And that gives this coin a special place in American coin history. Imagine someone receiving this penny in 1957. The United States was entering a completely different era. The economy was changing, technology was advancing, and Americans were using these little copper cents every day. A 1957 D penny could have purchased something small back then. Today, that same penny can be a collectible piece of American history. But here's the important question. How much is it actually worth? The honest answer is that most circulated 1957 D pennies are not worth huge amounts. Some value guides place ordinary examples only modestly above face value, with significantly higher prices appearing as condition improves. So don't believe someone who tells you that every 1957 D wheat penny is worth thousands or millions. That's simply not accurate. But there is another side to the story. The very best examples can be dramatically different. PCGS records a 1957 D Lincoln cent graded MS 67 plus red that sold for $6,600 at Stack's Bowers in May 2019. That's a remarkable difference from 1 cent. But remember why that coin commanded such a price. It wasn't simply because it said 1957 D. It was an exceptionally high-grade red example. That's the lesson you need to remember. The date identifies the coin. The condition determines how interesting it may become. Now imagine finding one in an old collection. You pull out a 1957 D penny. At first, it looks ordinary. Then you notice the color. Instead of a dull brown appearance, it has attractive original reddish color. You turn it slightly under the light. The surfaces look unusually clean. There aren't many obvious contact marks. Lincoln's details are sharp. The wheat ears on the reverse are crisp. Now you have a reason to stop. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't rub it with a cloth. And definitely don't use chemicals. This is extremely important with old copper coins. Trying to make a wheat penny look shiny can permanently damage its original surface and potentially reduce its collector appeal. If you think you've found an exceptional example, preserve it exactly as you found it. Now let's talk about another exciting possibility. Mint errors. This is where a normal-looking 1957 D can become much more interesting. But you need to know the difference between a real error and ordinary damage. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent isn't automatically an error. A gouge isn't automatically an error. A mark caused by another coin after the penny left the mint is not the same thing as a genuine mint error. A genuine mint error occurs during production. And this distinction matters. Recent auction records show that 1957 D cents with major error characteristics can command prices far above ordinary examples. For example, a 2026 Heritage result lists a 1957 D cent struck on a silver dime, double denomination, graded MS 63 NGC at $3,172. Another 1957 D struck substantially off-center sold for $7,475 in an earlier auction. Those are very different coins from a normal 1957 D. So if your penny has something truly unusual, don't immediately assume you've found the same thing. Instead, protect the coin. Take clear photographs. Study the feature. And if it looks genuinely mint-made, professional authentication can help determine what you're actually holding. Now let's imagine something even more exciting. You have a jar full of old pennies. Most are ordinary. You start searching through them one by one. Then you see it. 1957 D. You turn it over. The wheat reverse is still there. You look closer. The color is beautiful. The surfaces are clean. Lincoln's portrait is sharply defined. And then you notice something unusual near the strike. That is the moment you stop searching casually. You start investigating. Because coin hunting isn't really about finding an old date. It's about finding the exceptional coin hiding among ordinary ones. And that's exactly why the 1957D is worth checking. Not because every example is rare. Not because every example is worth thousands. But because exceptional condition and genuine errors can completely change the conversation. Now let's talk about one more detail: carbon spots. Copper coins can develop small dark spots or discolorations. On high-grade examples, these can matter because collectors generally prefer coins with clean, attractive surfaces. PCGS specifically notes that collectors should inspect 1957D cents for carbon spotting, and that the most desirable examples are strongly struck, spot-free, and retain vivid original red color. So when you're examining your penny, don't just ask whether it's shiny. Ask whether the surfaces are clean and original. That's much more important. Now let's compare two imaginary 1957D wheat pennies. The first is worn. Lincoln's cheek shows circulation. The wheat ears are soft. The color is dark brown. There are scratches everywhere. That's an ordinary circulated example. Now look at the second coin. The details are sharp. The surfaces are remarkably clean. The coin retains attractive original red color. There are very few contact marks. The strike is strong. That second coin is the one you want to investigate. And if it has a truly exceptional certified grade, the value can move far beyond the normal range. That's exactly what the $6,600 auction result demonstrates. But here's the most important thing I want you to remember. Don't confuse an auction record with the value of every coin. One spectacular sale doesn't mean every 1957D is worth $6,600. Your coin's actual value depends on its individual condition, color, strike, originality, errors or varieties, and authentication. That's how serious coin collecting works. So before you spend your 1957D Lincoln Wheat Penny, check the date. Check the D mint mark. Study Lincoln's portrait. Look at the color. Inspect the surfaces. Turn it over. Study the wheat reverse. Look for unusual characteristics. And never clean the coin. If it's worn and ordinary, it may simply be a nice piece of American history. But if it's exceptionally preserved, strongly struck, beautifully read, or has a genuine mint-made error, then you may have something much more interesting. The 1957D isn't a guaranteed jackpot. But that's actually what makes the search exciting. Because you don't know what you'll find until you look closely. One penny can be ordinary. One penny can be exceptional. And sometimes the difference is hidden in details so small that most people never notice them. So the next time you see 1957D on a Lincoln Wheat Penny, don't immediately spend it. Turn it over. Check the wheat ears. Look at the color. Look at the surfaces. Check for unusual mint-made features. And if the coin looks truly exceptional, protect it before doing anything else. Because the real treasure isn't believing every old penny is worth a fortune. The real treasure is learning how to recognize the one that actually deserves a closer look. The coin number 2. Stop before you spend a 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Take one more look at it. This little 1-cent coin may look old, worn, and almost worthless, but there is a reason collectors still examine 1935 wheat pennies very carefully. The date itself does not automatically make this coin a fortune, but condition, original color, varieties, and genuine mint-made errors can completely change its collector value. And there is one particular 1935 variety that you definitely want to know about before you put this penny back into circulation. Look closely at the front of your coin. You should see the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above him is "In God We Trust," with liberty beside the portrait and 1935 below. Now look carefully around the date. If there is no mint mark, that means the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. If you see a small D or S, you're dealing with a different 1935 issue. The 1935 Philadelphia Lincoln cent had a mintage of 245,388,000, so an ordinary circulated 1935 penny is not considered extremely rare simply because of its age. But here's where things get interesting. Imagine finding one of these pennies in an old jar. It has been sitting there for decades. You pick it up, see the date 1935, and think, this is just an old penny. But then you notice that the coin has unusually sharp details. The color looks attractive. The surfaces appear surprisingly clean. You turn it over, and the famous wheat ears are still beautifully defined. Now you start asking the right questions. Is this coin circulated or uncirculated? What color is it? How clean are the surfaces? Is the strike strong? And most importantly, does it have a recognized variety? Those questions are much more important than simply seeing the number 1935. Now let's talk about the history. The Lincoln Wheat cent was introduced in 1909 and became one of the most recognizable American coins ever produced. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln was designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse featured two wheat ears surrounding the denomination and inscriptions. By 1935, this design had already been part of American life for more than 2 decades. And the year itself is fascinating. The United States was living through the Great Depression. Americans were using pennies for everyday purchases, and these small copper coins were constantly moving through stores, pockets, cash registers, and banks. Some were lost, some were damaged, some were saved, and some eventually ended up inside collections where they remained protected for generations. That's why holding a 1935 wheat penny isn't simply holding 1 cent. You're holding a small piece of American history from almost a century ago. Now turn the coin over. You should see the classic wheat reverse. At the top is E+UM. In the center is 1 cent and United States of America. On both sides are the wheat ears that gave the series its famous nickname. This reverse was nearing the end of its long run, but collectors today still love it because it instantly identifies the coin as a classic wheat cent. Now let's get to the part everyone wants to know. How much can a 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny be worth? The answer depends heavily on the individual coin. A normal circulated example is generally worth only a modest amount. But a high-grade coin with beautiful original color can be worth considerably more. Current graysheet data shows a very wide range for 1935 Philadelphia cents depending on grade and color, with ordinary brown pieces much lower and top red examples reaching substantially higher levels. So don't make the mistake of thinking every 1935 penny is worth thousands. It isn't. The exciting part is finding the exceptional example. And there's another reason you should inspect this date carefully. Varieties. One of the most interesting varieties associated with the 1935 Philadelphia cent is the doubled die obverse. A genuine doubled die is not simply a scratch or damaged lettering. It is created during the die-making process and can produce a recognizable secondary impression on parts of the design. On the 1935 double die variety, collectors pay particular attention to areas such as "In God We Trust" and the date. If you think you see doubling, don't immediately assume you've discovered a rare variety. This is extremely important. Many coins have what appears to be doubling, but is actually mechanical damage or strike-related distortion. True collectible doubling has specific characteristics. That's why serious collectors use established variety references and professional authentication when necessary. PCGS lists several recognized 1935 double-die varieties, including FS101 examples. And that is exactly why a magnifying glass can become your best friend when searching old wheat pennies. Take the coin. Use good lighting. Look at In God, We Trust. Look carefully at 1935. Look around Lincoln's eye and other design elements. You're not looking for a random scratch. You're looking for a consistent, raised secondary design that matches a recognized variety. Now let's talk about another major factor: color. Lincoln cents were made from copper, and copper naturally changes appearance as it ages. Collectors commonly describe Lincoln cents as brown, red-brown, or red. A circulated 1935 penny may be dark brown because it has spent years exposed to handling and the environment. But a coin that retains a large amount of original red color can be much more desirable, especially in high grades. This is why two 1935 pennies that look like the same coin at first glance can have completely different collector values. One may have heavy scratches and dark surfaces. The other may have brilliant original color and almost no visible wear. Same date, same basic design, completely different collector appeal. Now imagine finding the second one. You look at Lincoln's cheek. Almost no wear. You look at the fields. Very few marks. You turn it over. The wheat ears are sharply defined. The color is attractive. Suddenly, this isn't just a penny you throw into a jar. It's a coin worth examining carefully. And here's one of the biggest mistakes people make. They clean it. Please don't. If your 1935 wheat penny looks dirty, resist the temptation to make it shiny. Don't use toothpaste. Don't use metal polish. Don't scrub it. Don't scratch the surface. Don't use harsh chemicals. A coin's original surface is extremely important to collectors, and cleaning can permanently change it. If you believe you've found an exceptional coin, preserving it exactly as you found it is usually the smarter move. Now let's talk about errors. A genuine mint error can make an otherwise ordinary date much more interesting. But again, be careful. A scratch isn't automatically an error. A dent isn't automatically an error. A damaged edge isn't automatically an error. A coin that was damaged after leaving the mint should not be confused with a genuine manufacturing error. That's why if you see something unusual on your 1935 penny, take clear photographs and compare it with documented examples before making any big claims about its value. Now here's something that makes coin hunting exciting. You could search through hundreds of ordinary wheat pennies and find nothing special. Then one coin catches your eye. It's a 1935. No mint mark. The surfaces look unusually good. The color is attractive. You inspect the lettering. You inspect the date. And suddenly, you notice something that doesn't look normal. That's the moment every collector loves. Not because every strange coin is valuable, but because you've found something that deserves investigation. That's the difference between coin collecting and simply collecting old coins. You're learning to recognize the details. Now let's talk about value one more time. A normal circulated 1935 Philadelphia wheat cent should not be advertised as a $1 million coin. That kind of claim is misleading. But exceptional examples can absolutely be valuable. For example, PCGS records a 1935 Philadelphia double-die obverse, example graded MS-64, that sold for $682 at Great Collections. And current market data shows that high-grade red examples of the standard 1935 issue can reach dramatically higher levels than ordinary circulated coins. So the real lesson isn't every 1935 penny is worth a fortune. The real lesson is some 1935 pennies are worth investigating very carefully. And that's much more useful information. So if you have a 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny, start with the basics. Check the date. Check whether there is a mint mark. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Examine the color. Look for wear. Look for scratches. Turn it over and study the wheat ears. Then inspect the lettering and date under magnification for any genuine variety. And whatever you do, don't clean the coin. The most valuable thing about your penny may not be obvious at first glance. It might be the condition. It might be the color. It might be a recognized double die. It might be a genuine mint error. Or it might simply be a beautifully preserved piece of American history. And that is why the 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny is worth another look. Because when you see one sitting in an old collection, don't immediately think, it's only 1 cent. Think, what story is hiding inside this coin? Nearly 90 years have passed since 1935. Millions of these pennies entered circulation. Most experienced wear. Many were damaged or lost, but some survived in exceptional condition. And a few have characteristics that collectors actively search for. So before you spend your 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny, take a few seconds. Check the date. Check the mint mark or the absence of one. Check the color. Check the surfaces. Check the lettering. Check the date for genuine doubling. And if something looks unusually special, protect it and have it properly evaluated. Because the excitement isn't in pretending every old penny is a fortune. The excitement is in knowing exactly what to look for when the exceptional one finally appears. The coin number 3. Stop before you spend this 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Take one more look. It may look like an ordinary 1-cent coin, but some 1946 pennies in exceptional condition have sold for thousands of dollars. And here's the part most people miss. If your 1946 penny has no mint mark, it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. So don't judge this coin by its face value alone. Look at the color, condition, surfaces, and tiny details, because that's where the real story begins. And stay with me, because by the end, you'll know exactly what to check before you spend this old penny. Take a close look at the front of your coin. You should see the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head are the words "In God we trust," while liberty appears beside his portrait. At the bottom is the date 1946. Now look directly underneath the date. If you don't see a D and you don't see an S, you have the Philadelphia version. In 1946, Philadelphia did not put a mint mark on these cents. The Philadelphia issue had a huge mintage of 991,655,000 coins, so the ordinary circulated 1946 no mint mark penny is not a rare coin simply because it is old. But this is where things become much more interesting. Coin collectors don't look at an old penny and ask only, what year is it? They ask, what condition is it in? Imagine you have two 1946 pennies sitting next to each other. One has been circulating for decades. Lincoln's cheek is worn, the surface is covered with contact marks, the color is dark brown, and the wheat ears on the reverse have lost some of their sharpness. Now imagine the second coin. It still has strong detail. The surfaces are unusually clean. The coin has attractive original reddish color, and there is very little evidence that it spent years being passed from hand to hand. Both coins say 1946. Both have no mint mark. But a collector may see two completely different coins. That's because condition can make an enormous difference in Lincoln cent values. Now turn the coin over. You should see the classic two wheat ears surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America. At the top is EPLURBUSUNUM. This is the famous wheat reverse that makes these coins instantly recognizable to collectors. And 1946 is a particularly interesting year in American history. World War II had just ended. American soldiers were returning home. The country was moving into a new post-war period, and everyday life was changing rapidly. Yet this tiny copper cent was still moving through American pockets, stores, cash registers, and banks. Someone could have received this exact type of penny in 1946 without ever imagining that decades later collectors would be examining the same design under magnification. The 1946 Lincoln cent was made from a copper-based composition, and the Philadelphia version weighs about 3.11 grams and measures about 19 millimeters across. Now let's talk about the question everybody wants answered. How much is a 1946 no mint mark wheat penny worth? The honest answer is, it depends heavily on condition. A normal circulated example may be worth only a modest amount above face value. One current value guide lists an average condition Philadelphia 1946 penny around 6 cents, with typical uncirculated examples increasing from there. So don't believe someone who tells you that every 1946 penny is a $1,000 coin. That's simply not true. But here's the exciting part. The very best examples can be worth dramatically more. PCGS records an auction result of $14,950 for a 1946 Philadelphia Lincoln cent graded MS-67, sold by Heritage Auctions. Now, before you get excited and start looking at every 1946 penny as a $14,950 coin, remember something extremely important. That was an exceptional, professionally graded high-grade example. It was not an ordinary circulated penny. This is exactly why coin collecting requires you to look beyond the date. Your 1946 penny might be worth only a small amount. Or if it has extraordinary preservation, original color, and a very high grade, it could be significantly more interesting. So let's examine the most important thing you can check at home. The condition. Place your coin under a bright light. Don't look at it from a distance. Look closely at Lincoln's cheek. Look at his jaw. Look at the hair. Look at the open areas around his portrait. Are there scratches? Are there lots of small contact marks? Does the coin show obvious wear? If yes, you're probably looking at a circulated example. But if Lincoln's features are unusually sharp and the surfaces are remarkably clean, slow down. Now look at the color. Lincoln cents are commonly described by collectors as brown, red-brown, or red, depending on their remaining original color. A coin that has turned brown after decades of circulation is completely normal. But a coin that has preserved attractive original red color, especially with very little wear, can be considerably more desirable. That's why you should never judge a wheat penny only by whether it looks old. Sometimes the best-looking coin is actually the one that has survived with the least damage. Now turn it over again. Look at the wheat ears. Are the details sharp? Do the lines remain clear? Are there heavy scratches across the reverse? Look around the lettering. Check 1 cent. Check United States of America. Look at the open fields. You're searching for a coin with unusually clean surfaces and strong original details. And there's one thing I want you to remember. Do not clean the coin. This is extremely important. If your 1946 wheat penny looks dirty, don't use toothpaste. Don't use metal polish. Don't scrub it with a cloth. Don't put it into chemicals. Don't try to make the copper shine. A coin's original surface is part of its collectible character, and cleaning can permanently damage it. If you think you have found something special, protect the coin exactly as you found it. Now let's talk about another possibility that can make a normal-looking coin much more interesting. Mint errors and varieties. If you see something unusual on your 1946 penny, don't immediately call it a rare error. A scratch is not automatically a mint error. A dent is not automatically a mint error. A mark caused by another coin isn't automatically a mint error. A genuine mint error must have occurred during the manufacturing process. That's why unusual coins need careful examination. If something looks strange, take clear photographs and compare it with documented examples. If the feature appears significant, professional authentication can help determine whether you're looking at a genuine mint-made characteristic or post-mint damage. Now imagine you're searching an old jar of wheat pennies. Most coins are worn. Some are dark. Some are scratched. Then suddenly, you find a 1946. No mint mark. You turn it under the light. The color looks different. Lincoln's portrait is sharp. The surfaces are unusually clean. You turn it over. The wheat ears are crisp. That's the moment you stop searching casually. You don't throw it back into the jar. You don't spend it. And you definitely don't clean it. You protect it. Because you've found a coin that deserves a closer look. This is the real excitement of coin hunting. It's not about believing that every old penny will make you rich overnight. It's about discovering the exceptional coin hiding among ordinary coins. And the 1946 Philadelphia wheat penny is a perfect example. Almost 1 billion were produced, so the normal coin isn't rare. But an exceptional survivor can be a completely different story. PCGS's records show just how dramatic that difference can become, with the MS-67 example reaching $14,950 at auction. So when you see that number, remember the lesson. Don't chase the price, chase the characteristics. Look for condition. Look for original color. Look for sharp details. Look for unusual mint-made features. And if you believe your coin is exceptional, then consider professional grading rather than relying on an internet claim. Now let's go back to the history for a moment. The Lincoln Wheat cent began in 1909, and the design became one of the most recognizable coins in American history. By 1946, millions of Americans were familiar with Lincoln's portrait and the two wheat ears on the reverse. This little coin witnessed an important transition in American history. It came from the year immediately after World War II ended. It circulated while families were rebuilding their lives. It passed through an America entering the modern post-war era. And somehow, nearly 80 years later, examples of that same coin are still being found. That's what makes collecting old coins so fascinating. You're holding something that has physically survived from another generation. Now let's be realistic about the million-dollar claims you sometimes hear online. A normal 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny is not a million-dollar coin. There is no reason to tell viewers that every dirty 1946 penny can make them billionaires overnight. That would be misleading. The much more interesting truth is that condition can create a huge gap between an ordinary coin and an exceptional one. And that's a story your viewers can actually trust. A circulated 1946 penny may be worth only a small amount. A nice uncirculated coin can be worth more. A high-grade red example can be much more desirable. And an exceptional certified coin or genuine rare error can potentially command substantially higher prices. That's why you should look before you spend. So if you have a 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark, take a final close look. Check the date. Check that there is no D or S underneath it. Study Lincoln's portrait. Examine the color. Look for wear. Look for scratches. Turn the coin over. Study the wheat ears. Check the lettering. Look for anything unusual. And above all, don't clean it. Because you may not have a fortune. You may simply have a common old wheat penny. But if your coin has exceptional preservation, original color, a very high grade, or a genuine mint-made error, it could be far more interesting than its 1 cent face value suggests. So the next time you see 1946 with no mint mark, don't immediately spend it. Take a few seconds. Look closely. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary penny and a highly collectible penny is hiding in details that most people never notice. The date gets your attention. The condition tells the story. And the tiny details may determine whether your 1946 wheat penny is simply old or genuinely worth investigating.